Flying to Australia gets harder and harder with age. Mum's Australian, and I've done that trip probably a dozen times in my lifetime. So when Car Advice invited me out there end of January to shoot some content for them, choosing the right airline was always going to be key for me, especially as I was going out there for work. So after my research, I decided to fork out and go for the Cathay business class. I love planes as much as I love cars, and in fact when I was younger I wanted to be a commercial pilot. After further research, I discovered that their latest planes, which were the Airbus A350s, which have got the carbon fibre wings and fuselage, they're super efficient, super lightweight, they're twin engine now, as a lot of aircrafts or commercial aircrafts are going. They're getting rid of the 4 engines, so things like the A380 are actually not really being purchased anymore because they're very inefficient on long haul flights. So they've gone to the A350, which is one of the latest and greatest aircrafts, and they're flying those A350s, well they were back in January, just out of Gatwick to Australia. So instead of my favourite airport, which would be Heathrow normally, which is only about 20 minutes from where I live, I decided to sacrifice that extra 20 minutes in journey time to Gatwick to get a much better aircraft. Now I do several flights a year, and in fact already I'm up to about 20 flights this year, and we've just reached May, so this is exceptional to be fair, but I normally always fly out of Heathrow. But I gave Gatwick a go, and I have to say, from everything, from the check-in process, which was super easy, it had like these unmanned check-in units that printed your boarding pass and your bag tags, etc., which in theory you would think wouldn't work. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of sort of unmanned or automated stuff. I always like speaking to a human being, but the initial process worked. Then you sort of hand your bags over to an actual human being who was very polite and lovely. So that process was very quick and very easy, very uncluttered. Because it's Gatwick, it's not as busy an airport, there's a bit more space. And then I went through customs. Now I, for one, hate going through airport customs because you always get made to feel like you're a criminal, especially in certain countries, which I won't mention. Now, that's not the case in Gatwick. They actually, and I found out later that everyone that works in customs at Gatwick is actually goes to a customer service classes, and they talk to you like a normal human being. They're very nice and charming, and they said good morning to me and, you know, asked how my day was going, and it just made that whole process so much different. You know, I didn't care if I had to take off my belt and my shoes and whatever, my trousers even. Now, what I'd done prior to leaving was I actually reached out to Cathay Pacific UK. I asked Cathay if I could go and have a look at the plane whilst it was on the ground, sort of getting its turnaround, so being cleaned and being fueled back up and you know, all the catering and stuff. They got straight back to me and basically said, yeah, no problem. So after I'd done all my check-in and stuff, this lovely lady called Shabita from Cathay Pacific UK, who had worked for them for, I think it was close to 20 years. She came and met me and basically took me all through the security process. That was quite long-winded, as you would hope and as you'd expect. But next thing, I'm standing on the tarmac next to this beautiful A350 aircraft. Like literally, I'm standing right on it. And so I'm walking around, I can have a look at the engines. I had a look, just the sheer size of it, you know, planes are incredible things. Obviously, the closer you get to them, the bigger they become. But being that close to them on the tarmac, I'm looking at the landing gear and looking at the wings and the winglets, which are a big feature on the A350. The beautiful sort of rounded carbon winglets, which you'd only see on the 350 because of the carbon and the way they can make it. And it just looks stunning. Just the whole plane, even the nose. A lot of noses on modern commercial jets, they look kind of like pimples. They're like stuck on, like an afterthought almost. They're not, but that's the way they look. But on the A350, it's just a beautiful, beautiful shape, and it's more like a seal than a pimple. So I am now on the tarmac in Gatwick, and behind me is the A350 that I'm flying to Hong Kong on. Cathay have very kindly let me come out on here and have a much closer look at the aircraft. We're just having a look around at the moment. I've just been over to look at the Rolls-Royce Trent, I think they're RB3 engines. Again, literally, I could stand in one of them, no problem. They're sort of 8 to 10 foot tall, And the wing above me, I've got the wingtip just above my head here, and that wing I would say is about 30 foot above my head, and the whole wing's made out of carbon fibre, 25% more efficient. That was amazing, you know. And then obviously once it had been cleaned and fueled up, I was then allowed to go on board and check out the whole plane, completely empty. Yes, there was a few staff running around just doing the finishing touches and making sure everything was in place and ready for the next flight that I was going to be on. You know, the kitchens at the back, right at the back of the plane, were massive. I would say they were 2 or 3 times bigger than my little kitchen in my cottage. You know, that was unbelievable. And then basically starting from the back and walking my way forward, I got to have a look at the economy class. Now, this plane was no more than about 6 months old, so it was state of the art. Everything in there was just top notch, and I have to say, the minute I walked into economy class, I was blown away by everything was so uncluttered. It was just very clean and simple. It looked so well designed and just pretty in there, and there was no fuss. There wasn't too many colours going on. It was just bang on. And the seats, again, they looked very functional, very comfortable, and they were, which I found out. But also very uncluttered. They had everything on there. They had beautiful sized infotainment screens. They reclined, I think off memory, about 6 or 7 inches, which is far more than, you know, other planes that I'd been in economy class. And just the overall space, they just seemed great. And, you know, that's coming from me, the giant. So I was really impressed with the way the economy seats were. If I'd gone for the economy class, I would have been super pleased. So they were great. I then stepped forward into the premium economy, which was the seat that I was initially going to go for. And when I walked in there, I looked at it, I thought, wow, I could have saved myself a few grand by going for these seats, because they were brilliant. And to me, they were what I picture the old business class being like in older planes. You know, the seats were huge, very similar, in fact, to my 7 Series seats, and they reclined, again off memory, about 10 or 11 inches. They also had a footstool that kicked out at the bottom once it started reclining, which in effect kind of gave you like I wouldn't say, I mean, it's nowhere near a flatbed, but it just gave you loads of support on your legs and loads of support on your upper body, and it just felt really, really comfortable. I mean, I was very impressed. And again, the infotainment system was that much better. Things like charging points and stuff, it was bang up to date. It wasn't, you know, it felt modern, and it felt clean, and it felt simple. And then of course I ventured forward into the business class, and I mean, to say I was excited is a massive understatement. Obviously, after going through premium economy, which I thought was impressive enough, I just couldn't imagine what the business class section would be like. Although I had watched many videos online, I just couldn't really prepare myself for for what I was going to be in for the next 22 or so hours. The business class seats were just beautiful pieces of equipment, and I found out later that they were designed by Porsche, as in Porsche cars. So it was quite ironic that I was on an Airbus A350 that had seats designed by Porsche and engines made by Rolls-Royce. So you can see how it kind of ties in with this channel and with what I like. I couldn't wait to really just get on with the flight and, you know, get into sort of my seat and start playing with all the stuff and all the, you know, investigating, prodding around, looking at what there was to sort of play with for my long flight. And to me, it was a bit like getting a new car. You know, there's so many things to discover and play with during that flight. And in fact, even all the way there and all the way back, I was still finding new stuff, and it was just really amazing. And I can only imagine flying in that seat frequently. It would just be, you know, be a dream. It would be lovely. Now, for the first leg of the journey, I chose a window seat, and I believe it was 21A off the top of my head. And the reason I initially chose a window seat was because I just believed that would be the most private and possibly the most spacious, and obviously then you've got the window as well. And I was traveling alone, so it made sense to do that. I could see that they were the most popular when I went to check in online, so I chose one of them, and I couldn't have been happier. When we finally did board the plane, I obviously took my seat and started looking around at what was, surrounding me. And initially I realised the seat was amazingly comfortable. I had more legroom. Well, I couldn't touch the end of where my feet ended up. I had endless amounts of legroom where the bed would initially lie flat. So I had plenty of legroom there. I had little cubby holes everywhere to sort of put my shoes in, or my bags in, my magazines in, and I could just literally make it my little home, my little space for the journey. And again, that's so important for me, because I always bring so much stuff onto flights, like some stuff that I need, especially if I'm doing like vlogging like I was on that trip. I've got loads of camera equipment, and all my prized possessions do come with me as hand luggage. I'm not going to put expensive cameras and stuff in the hold, because I just don't want them getting damaged or stolen. So I always bring everything with me, but being able to sort of put all that stuff away and then be comfortable in a clean area was just to die for, and just, it was lovely. Now, during the flight, which was the most quiet flight I've ever been on, and that was mostly down to the carbon fibre fuselage and the wings, but also the efficiency of the wings and the engines. Now, it doesn't need to use as much thrust as other planes of its size, because it's lighter and much more efficient. It flies through the air easier, and as a result, the sound, or the lack of sound in the cabin, was just unreal. You haven't got that roar going on in your head that you kind of acclimatise to, but then your ears ring for hours after a flight, whereas on this one it was deadly quiet. I had missed out on the business class lounge at Gatwick because I was more interested in getting footage of the plane on the ground, and obviously that sort of dragged on a bit, and then it was basically boarding time, so I missed that. But it was fine, because I kind of wanted to save myself and my appetite for what was on board the plane. Now, that didn't disappoint. From the moment we got on, we were getting given snacks and refreshments and champagnes and berry juices and orange juices and whatever you wanted, it was there. And then shortly after takeoff, seemed like no time at all, we were offered a very, very lovely lunch. Now, I decided to go the healthy option with all of the meals on the first two legs, in fact. Reason being, I wanted to go healthy was that meant in my mind that I could just eat as much as possible and as much as was on offer. So I was constantly having whatever was available but the healthy option, and then snacks and stuff in between, because I just wanted to experience the whole thing, and I guess get my value for money for the flight. So, and that was great. I mean, the food that, I had fresh salmon. It was honestly, if you were in a 5-star restaurant in Mayfair, you would not have been disappointed with any of the food that I was given. So to get that at 35,000 feet was just, it was living the dream. It really was. And again, the alcohol that was on offer, the beers, there was multiple beers. In fact, I had a VB, a Victorian Bitter beer, which is an Australian beer, on the flight leaving Gatwick pretty much. So it was great. You could kind of get into the spirit and into the mood. And again, that stretched to the wines. I like my red wine. There were some fantastic red wines on both legs, and choices of red wines, and it was really good. Then we move on to the infotainment system, and again, I could see that in economy class they had a good selection. I could see that everything was bang up to date, so I knew that, up in business it would be another level, and it really was. I had an incredible controller that was as up to date and as high res as my latest Samsung S8 Plus or whatever I had at the time, and that worked very well, very functional. And the amount of stuff on there, I reckon you could probably fly around the world 10 times and you wouldn't have watched any of it twice. So there was so much stuff on there, endless games, etc. to play. There was so many things. There was really cool camera angles that you could watch from outside of the plane. There was just lots and lots of things to do from this controller, and of course that operated the TV, which was at the bottom of my bed or the bottom of my seat, or where my legs go, and the TV was as big as the one that I have at home. As the flight went on, I then started having a look into sort of what was around me. Obviously I had infinite seat controls on one side that basically enabled me to put my seat however I wanted it. Now, there was there was multiple positions, but there was three main ones. There was upright, which is really for takeoff and landing, or if you're reading a book, or a very good posture sort of position. Then there was, I think they called it relaxed, or the chilled position, where it kind of half reclined, and it would be good for watching TV and stuff, and you could still eat in that kind of position. And then of course you got the lie flat, and it was completely flat. And when I say completely flat and like a bed, again, 6'4", I could stretch right out, and in fact I could sort of I could get into the fetal position as well, and I could feel comfortable. I could feel like I was in a bed, which I'd never done before on any business class flight. It just felt very, very comfortable, and yeah, it was great. And in fact, later on into that flight, I decided to have a couple of hours sleep just before landing in Hong Kong because of the time differences. And I passed out like a log, and I woke up for an incredible breakfast. So it was amazing. It really was. I was super impressed with not just the seat, but the fact that when it was a bed, it was actually a bed, and it actually felt like a bed. I didn't feel like I was sleeping on a plank, or I didn't feel restricted by size or way too big. In fact, it felt bigger than most. It felt bigger than most single beds in hotels that I stay in these days. At least my feet weren't falling off the end of the bed, because that was impossible because you're in kind of like a capsule. So it felt great, really cozy, and because of the low engine noise and stuff, it was just a civil sleep. It was really, really nice. We landed in Hong Kong. Now there was a connecting flight about an hour and a half after I'd landed, but I decided to spend 10 hours in Hong Kong because I'd never been to Hong Kong. I like adventures. I like experiencing new places, and I'd heard lots of good things about Hong Kong. So I literally, decided to spend 10 hours there. I was a bit tired, even though I'd had a couple hours sleep, just because of the time zone differences, etc. And I'd really only had 2 or 3 hours sleep in the past 24, I guess. So I jumped straight on the airport shuttle to Hong Kong Island, which was so fast and so clean, and actually reasonably cheap. I think it was about £12, and that took me straight into the heart of Hong Kong, if you like, and straight into their rush hour as well. I think I arrived about 9 a.m. So there was people everywhere, and it was all busy. But it was really enjoyable. I loved it, and I went and had breakfast down on the sort of waterfront. Had a lovely coffee down there, and then I went for a little boat journey, and I had a great time. I really did, and I was so pleased that I did it. And the sun was out. It was about 27 degrees. It was a bit humid. There was a bit of sort of not fog, but I would almost call it smog in the air. But then that cleared, and apparently that's quite a common thing on Hong Kong Island especially. So it was a real experience, and the whole time all I could think about, to be fair, was getting back to the plane, getting back into my little cocoon. And also I wanted to get back to the airport to experience the business class lounges at Cathay Pacific's home, which is Hong Kong Airport. So I got back there. Now, I went a bit wrong in this experience, because I didn't realise that Cathay have got 5 business class lounges in Hong Kong Airport. They've got 2 first class lounges as well. So I didn't know that. As I went through, I guess you'd call it check-in again, I went immediately to the first lounge I'd seen, which was called the Wing Lounge, and that's near gates 1, 2 and 3. It was amazing. There was little shower rooms with beautifully clean towels. Wow. So I've just arrived back at Hong Kong Airport, and I'm now in the business lounge for Cathay. It's called the Wing. I was hoping that they were going to have showers here. I wasn't sure. And not just showers, but I've just been given this amazing bathroom. I mean, it's literally, if like me, you've come off an 11-hour flight, then you've been in Hong Kong for 11 hours, and now you're about to get on another, 11 or 12-hour flight. I'm dying and hanging for a shower, and I just couldn't wish for anything else at the moment. All showered, I feel a million times better, but the Hong Kong sunshine has burnt my nose. It was like being in a 5-star hotel, I felt so fresh after that day in Hong Kong and a day's flight and a day in Hong Kong. I was dying for that shower, and it just made me feel amazing. The food was great, everything was great. I thought it was unbelievable. What I learned later was, in fact, there's 5 lounges, and there was lounges that were much better than that one that I'd been in. One of them called the Pier Lounge, which had just been open. So I saved that for my return journey. On the second leg, so Hong Kong to Melbourne, I purposely chose a centre seat. So would you call it an aisle seat? No, you'd call it, the configuration they had was window seat, and then 2 middle seats, and then window seats. So 4 seats across. So first part I was on the window seat, the second journey I was in one of the middle seats. And I have to say, I was not disappointed with that at all. Okay, it was mostly a night flight anyway, so I chose it purposely because I thought, well, I'm not going to miss out on many views or any views. I wasn't sure about the privacy. Now, I had a lovely person next to me that, you know, that I could, if I wanted to, decide to speak to. So initially we had a little talk, but then you could sit back and you felt completely private and alone. There was no, you know, that I didn't feel any less private in that seat than I did in my own window seat. So best of both worlds, I guess. If you're traveling with someone, obviously you'd pick those 2 center seats because you can communicate and you can share things and you can pass drinks and whatever you need to if you need to. But the minute you sit back in your seat, you're completely private. And I think they've done a very good job with that. And I'm sure they're not the only people to do that, but it just worked really well. And I was a bit concerned as to how that would work, but to me, it worked very well. So hats off to you. The configuration and Porsche for designing those incredible seats were just brilliant. Now, after my fantastic journey out to Australia, I felt so good. And in fact, I landed again fairly early in the morning. My brother came pick me up from the airport, and I had a full brilliant day in Melbourne. Admittedly, I was shattered by the end of that day, but that was good because then I slept really well that first night. And in fact, I didn't feel too bad the second day, and then immediately by the third day I was completely back to normal. And I put most of that down to the fact that I could rest and chill and relax and not stress on the journey out there. Now fast forward 3 weeks and my journey home, same treatment, same amazing aircraft. But when I got to Hong Kong, this time I was like, right, the Pier Lounge, let's find the Pier Lounge. Now, what I need to say is the Hong Kong airport is massive. I don't know how big it is in relation to other airports, but as far as I can see, and of all the airports I've been to in the world, I think it must be the biggest airport, at least the most stretched out, because the Pier Lounge is on gate 65 and the Wing Lounge is on gate 1. And to walk between, say, gate 1 and gate 65, even using the fast conveyor belts or whatever they're called, that takes about 25 minutes of fast walking. So it is massive, this airport. So you've got to factor in where you're landing, how much time you've got and stuff, because you can very easily miss a flight. So factor that in. I made a big effort to get all the way over to gate 65 to check out the Pier Lounge. And oh my, it was, I mean, the Wing Lounge was up here. The Pier Lounge was, you know, up at 35,000 feet. It was just stunning. Just the choice in food. I mean, you could probably comfortably sit maybe 500 or 1,000 people in throughout the whole lounge. Again, beautiful shower cubicles, bigger and even nicer than in the Wing. But it was the food choice that was amazing. Unfortunately, on the way back, I only had about an hour and a half layover, so I didn't have much time after I'd had a shower and freshen up to really experience much of the food. But you know, there's a la carte menus. There was a tea room, and when I say tea room, I mean it was like a massive size. It was like the biggest Costa you've ever been to, but beautiful teas, and there was everything. You know, a sushi room. There was everything, anything you could imagine, they had there. And that was to think that was just the business lounge. There was a first class version of that. I can't even imagine what they've got in there. But overall, I have to say I was massively delighted with Cathay Pacific. I was blown away by the space. You know, it's a lot of Western people might be put off by Asian airlines thinking they're going to be, you know, smaller seats or whatever else. Don't be. They were, for me, it was perfect. And in fact, even if I was a few inches taller, I wouldn't have had any issues. The space was amazing, service was amazing. Flying out of Gatwick, can I believe I'm saying this, was amazing, and I absolutely would do that again. Everything, the whole experience was brilliant, and in fact it just took the stress out of flying so far the other side of the world completely away from me. And yeah, it was just brilliant. I mean, my only issue with it is now when I fly back to Australia again, I'm going to have to dig deep into my pockets to fly business Cathay, because I can't see ever going away from that. Guys, I hope you really enjoyed this video. It's something very different to my norm, I know, but I just thought I'd take this opportunity to shoot a vlog, because it's not every day I get to fly on such a beautiful aircraft and airline across the other side of the world. So hopefully you enjoyed sharing that experience with me. Please give us a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe if you're new to my channel. Also leave any questions and comments below, and I'll try my best to get back to you. Have a lovely 2018, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers. Without feeling too much like Casey Neistat, check out this for an aeroplane toilet. There's a window behind the toilet seat. It's really nice in here. Plenty of room. But that is so cool. It's a shame you're not sitting this way actually, and you can just stare out there. That's a toilet view and a half.